Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this, and I want to apologise yet again for it being so long since the last video. This time of the year is just crazy though, right? Everything is going on, work seems to get even more stressful than it normally is, and then there's Christmas, just to add on a perfect Christmas cherry on top of all the other stress. I even tried to do like a little Christmas look with the red, but I realised I just looked more scary than normal. I'm into it, but not the Christmas vibe I was hoping for. So I have tried today, but I do apologise for how long it has been since we last saw each other. I do have an interesting video for you today though. Well, I hope you find it interesting. Actually, one of my Patreons, Chris, actually recommended this to me. So today we're going to be looking at the history of John Harvey Kellogg and the origin of cornflakes. No, really, that's what we're going into, but stick with me, there's reason for this. So if I said to you Kellogg's, you would naturally think of the very popular branded cereal, right? But did you know that there was a dark history surrounding the origin of cornflakes? Kellogg cereals, even to this day, are a staple of many homes' morning meals. That was incredibly hard to say. But we need to look at the man behind the brand, not W.K. Kellogg, but John Harvey Kellogg, and what we do not know about him. As we look into the history of this popular brand and the men behind it, you might question that what I'm saying is true. This is a truly weird one today. I just want to say thank you again to Chris for the recommendation, and I hope you all enjoy this. John Harvey Kellogg was born on the 26th of February 1852. He would also go on to live for 91 years, and as a man who promoted his own view of wellness and how to live the most healthy lifestyle possible, he was his own justification for his own thinking, because in this time, living to 91 was practically unheard of. We are also going to be talking about John Harvey's brother, W.K. Kellogg, and we will call him W.K. for short. May I also just add that John Harvey was actually one of 17 children. 17 children! I mean, you can tell that this was at a time when TVs had not been invented. But although he had so many siblings, the only other sibling that we need to talk about for the sake of this story is W.K. Kellogg. And if I'm being honest, I just don't think I could remember another 15 names. John Harvey was raised in a very religious household, and for the time, being religious was not unusual. He was raised in Tyrone in Michigan in the United States, and he was born into quite a wealthy family. John Harvey was raised as a believer in God, and as he grew up, became a member of the Baptists, the Congregationalist Church, and the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I had to look this up because I had absolutely no idea what they believed in. I knew they believed in God, but I didn't know everything else. But to summarize, they are just incredibly devoted Christians. They believe that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. They believe that the Bible is the most important book ever written, and they believe that when humans die, they actually just fall asleep until they are brought back to life. They also believe in a truly clean lifestyle, and that includes not eating meat and not being any way sinful. They also believe in a truly clean lifestyle of exercising and eating, and with this they believe in veganism, and they are against any and all sins. And this is very important for what we will discuss later. John Harvey's father truly believed that the second coming of Christ was imminent, and because of this, felt that his 17 children did not need proper educations. Due to this, John Harvey only went to school between the years of 9 and 11 years old. After this, he would go to work in his father's broom factory. The lack of education did not stop John Harvey. In his spare time, he was obsessed with reading every book that he could and obtaining as much knowledge as he found possible. John Harvey gave himself quite a good level of education, and with this was offered work by a very prestigious high-end society family called the Whites. The Whites were in charge of quite a lot, and also they were in publishing, and John Harvey would work within this sector and rise from an errand boy all the way to writing his own articles. He had always had a keen fascination in wellness, and this is exactly what he went on to write about. He wrote articles on good health and he wrote articles on how to live. John Harvey was very firm in his beliefs of a clean lifestyle, and he would advise his readers of this. Kellogg believed that fresh air and vegetarianism was the best way to a clean and healthy lifestyle, and he actually called this biological living. It was something that was truly believed in by the Adventist Church, and so John Harvey grew up thinking that this was the way forward. I believe earlier I said that he believed in veganism, and actually I'd like to correct myself and say that I think it was way more closer to vegetarianism than full-on veganism. But I truly believe that if John Harvey had been in the modern world, he would have been vegan. I just think that this concept potentially wasn't as big of an idea back then as it is now. John Harvey always wanted to be a teacher, and when he was 16, he taught at a school in Hastings in Michigan. And by the time he was 20, he was enrolled in a teacher's training course offered to him by the Michigan State Normal School. The Kellogg family and the Whites both agreed that John Harvey would be better to join a 6-month medical course, as the families wanted John Harvey and others to form a strong medical team as a group of trained doctors for an institute in a place called Battle Creek. Battle Creek was a town that had the Kelloggs, the Whites, and other important families in charge. So why wouldn't they also want John Harvey to become an important, powerful doctor too? In Battle Creek, there was an institute called Adventist-Inspired Western Health Reform Institute, which is a rather long building name, isn't it? John Harvey had graduated in 1875 with a medical degree, and in October 1876, he became a director at the institute, and in 1877, he renamed it to Battle Creek Medical Surgical Sanitarium. It was very smart of him, as he coined the term sanitarium, which suggested both hospital care and the importance of sanitation and personal health. But let's now go into the beliefs of John Harvey and how he treated his patients. At the time, he was seen as a revolutionary with broad and out there ideas, but now we would look at him as barbaric and completely unhinged. So John Harvey had some key staples to his beliefs. And we already know that he was very keen on vegetarianism, fresh air, and exercise. But he did also believe that you should abstain from smoking and you should also abstain from alcohol. All of these beliefs came from his religion at the Adventist Church. Adventists promoted this way of living, and honestly, by today's standards, being good with your diet and being very good with exercising and keeping yourself fit is still a medically encouraged way of living. So all of this so far sounds so good, right? Well, this is where that ends. Adventists also believed that self-pleasure was incredibly wrong and sinful. And I'm not sure if the YouTube gods are going to get me for saying that, because I actually don't know what I'm allowed to say on YouTube in regards to that topic, because weirdly, I've never spoken about it before. So if it's okay with you, and hopefully you stick with me on this, I'm going to say SP when I mean what I've just said. And hopefully the YouTube gods let me say that at least. John Harvey believed that SP actually led to a series of ailments and eventually would lead to insanity. Because of John Harvey's religious beliefs, he believed that SP was a vile practice. He believed that it would lead to poor digestion, memory loss, impaired vision, heart disease, epilepsy, and as I said before, ultimately lead to insanity. To break the habits of young boys and young girls, John Harvey had some horrific ways of dealing with this. For boys, he would actually make them put their hands over their area and then put a cage on top of that as well. It doesn't actually say how long they were left there in that state, but from what we're going to read with John Harvey, there is no way that it was like a minute or two. There is a very good chance that he left them like that for a long time. But unfortunately, if this method did not stop the boy from SP, then John Harvey would decide that the best way of stopping SP would be to circumcise the young boy without any anesthetic. He said, and I quote, that the brief pain would have such an effect on the mind that the offender would never offend again. Of course not. I'm sure it wasn't brief pain. I'm sure that was traumatizing to the highest level. And yeah, I'm sure they would never do that again. And also, I hope they wouldn't, because I don't want to know what John Harvey's next step after that would be. How utterly horrific. And if you can believe it, For young girls, it was even worse. So girls didn't actually get the chance to kind of have their hands placed over the area to get that to stop them. John Harvey would go straight into using carbolic acid on the very sensitive part of them. And again, if this didn't stop them from reoffending, then he would remove that area altogether. When I was researching this, it actually made me incredibly angry. There's like this warmth that goes through me because it's just so horrific. And I genuinely feel so sorry for everyone who went through that. I mean, none of those people are alive now, but that must have been just hideous. Unfortunately though, in some countries, girls are still going through this to this day. The world is healing, but not quick enough if you ask me. Anyway, let's try to move on. Let's take a break from all of that and go and look at the other medical marvels that John Harvey had to offer. John Harvey was a disciple of Horace Fletcher, who was a dubious health expert who advised patients to chew at least 40 times on each bite of food before swallowing. Kellogg would also lead dinners with a song called the Chewing Song, and a line from this song was, "Chew, chew, chew, that is the thing we do." Wonderful. Imagine chewing one bite of food 40 times. When I was writing this, I actually thought, right, I'll try that later. And I did. I put a piece of chocolate into my mouth, and it ruins it. It absolutely, how can you ruin chocolate? But in this way you can. And I'm not too sure actually what this was the cure for. If you chew something 40 times, it just becomes mush and it loses all flavour and you get very bored and there's no enjoyment from it anymore, which evidently was their medicinal cure. But I love food. I love making tasty food and eating tasty food that's already made. And to chew something 40 times just ruins it. I think if you were forced to do that and someone was watching you do that with all of your food, you just would not be excited to eat anymore. I don't know if it was a cure for obesity, but I think it would help because it would also take a lot of time out of your day. Imagine you're eating your dinner and, it's quite a big meal. You've got your protein, your carbohydrate and your vegetables, and then you're eating every single bite of that 40 times. I think you'd be there for hours. No thanks, not for me. Kellogg also recommended light baths to his patients. Now, there was some actual logic to this, as light can make depression better, but he would advise that his light baths could also cure diabetes, gangrene and syphilis. Kellogg believed that administering mild doses of electric current directly to patients' skin could treat multiple serious ailments. Kellogg also claimed that this procedure was painless and could treat lead poisoning, tuberculosis, obesity, and when applied directly to the patient's eyeballs, could cure visual defects. A continuous bath was also one of Kellogg's ideas. The sanitarium also said that it had 46 different types of baths, and a couple of them you will still know: foot bath, sponge bath, but the continuous bath would last for months, and it was all dependent on the patient that they were treating. Some people would have a continuous bath for days, weeks, and others months. Kellogg believed that it could treat skin diseases, chronic illnesses, and hysteria. The patient would be allowed to leave the bath for toilet breaks only. Enemas were also given, but the amount of liquid that was pushed into someone's bowels was a lot. Patients in the sanitarium would have 17 litres of water pushed into them. For reference, I was thinking of those large bottles of fizzy drinks, and actually, you know what? I actually might have one. I'm going to go get one and then we can see for visual what that looks like. Hang on, it's a lot. Hang on. Right, I have for you a giant bottle of lemonade that I didn't actually know existed. I knew they did 1 litre and 2 litre, but this is 3 litres of lemonade. So imagine 5.5 of these pushed into your bowels. I just want to make sure I've done the maths right there. 5 times 3 is 15, and then effectively 2/3 of the lemonade.
Satan has come to claim me.
5 of these and 2/3 of this. That's a lot of liquid. Thank goodness I have one of these for reference, because that just helps, doesn't it, to see it. That's a lot of liquid, isn't it?
Stop it. Get some help.
I'm so sorry if this looks different. My phone decided to die. Back to it. So on top of all of this, there was also a vibrating chair, and that sounds great, doesn't it? But I don't mean a nice plush chair with nice cushions. I mean a wooden chair that kind of threw you about violently. This was apparently designed to improve your circulation, and you also had the choice of whether you'd prefer to be beaten or slapped. And this was, of course, to improve your circulation. At least you got the choice, I guess. It's not all that he prescribed, though. If I told you that cornflakes were designed to be a dull, non-stimulating cereal so that the patient would avoid SP, would you believe me? Well, sadly, I'm telling the truth. Kellogg believed that bland foods would be the way to avoid SP and continue to keep people healthy and sane. There was apparently a debilitating scourge of SP, and Kellogg found that it was his job to stop this getting any worse. I know, I can't believe what I've just said out loud either. But yeah, isn't that fantastic that the cereal that we all know and love, and probably the biggest known cereal ever, was actually created to be so dull and so boring that you wouldn't get excited at breakfast time, and therefore you wouldn't be overstimulated in your day, get bored, have nothing else to do, and then decide to SP. Doesn't that seem insane? They don't put that on the box, do they? As time progressed, Kellogg believed that less invasive methods would be better than the other options available. Kellogg would opt to give women special hobbles, which is a tie that would loop around the ankles, and it would stop women from parting their legs. He also said that bland food would dead the desire to SP. Bland foods also included being a vegetarian, as he believed that meat could be overstimulating, and he believed that his special creation of cornflakes was exactly what everyone needed to stop being so overexcited in the mornings. There must have been a lot of morning people back then, because I'm not excited in the morning, especially not from my cereal choice. But, yep, this was literally given as a prescription to some patients, a prescription of cornflakes cereal. Just a little bit more information on cereal, just in case you were wondering. The first cereal was created in 1863 by a man called James Caleb Jackson. It was actually granola, and it was served with milk as the granola needed to be softened for consumption. This was given to patients of Our Home on the Hillside, which was a wellness facility that specialised in water treatments. But it would later be renamed as the Jackson Sanatorium. Sanatoriums were named sanatoriums if their establishment was related to health, and health institutions in this time would therefore, of course, then be named sanatoriums. But if you know your history of sanatoriums, you will know that these look good on the outside and on paper, but inside, people were not treated all that kindly. And as we've said earlier, John Harvey was one of these people to not treat his patients very kindly at all. And now you might believe that John Harvey then is the founder and owner of Kellogg cereal, but this is when we now go back to W.K. Kellogg, his brother. And this name might actually be even more familiar to you because it is W.K.'s name that is on the boxes. So W.K. heard about his brother's invention and he thought it was brilliant, like a great idea, but not just for those as patients in sanatoriums. He thought it would be a great idea to promote this to the general public too. And he would market it that it was a great breakfast cereal and lots of people loved it, but he would decide to leave out the part about this being so dull and understimulating that it will prevent SP. Good idea. The problem with this, however, is that he didn't actually get John Harvey's permission, and this would lead to a battle of ownership for over a decade. The cereal became incredibly popular, and as we now know, spiraled out into way more variations. The current worth of Kellogg's as a brand is £21.83 billion. So they were absolutely right to want to claim ownership on this. But W.K. Kellogg ultimately won the court cases. It's said that they actually settled this out of court, but I couldn't find a figure for this. Whatever it was, it actually wasn't enough. I mean, John Harvey was in no way poor, so he didn't need the money, but I think it was more principle than anything. But I think WK and his family has done a lot better out of that deal. And I mean, there's something in their logic, because WK actually also lived to be 91 years old. He passed away in 1951. By the year of 1924, the institution ceased to exist as it once did. It became a hotel and health spa and actually did its job at alleviating stress and being a place for relaxation. So I bet you weren't expecting that story right before Christmas. It is a bit strange, isn't it, to think that cornflakes, which seem such a innocent cereal, if I can say that, actually had a very sinister backstory. I think times have changed quite severely, as cereal had such an impact on people's daily lives back then. As awful as it sounds, it just must have been so mind-numbingly boring for this to be a cure for that problem. Thank goodness we no longer live in those times. I know this isn't necessarily the most jolly and Christmassy video, but I do wish you a fantastic festive period. I really hope that you eat beautiful food and you have lots of lovely memories with your family from it. Please look after each other. Please look after yourself. Have a wonderful Christmas and an even better New Year. Just as an update for anyone who is following the channel's progress, we did fall out of the YouTube Partner Program. I am no longer fighting to get back into it. If you want to support the channel, you can support me and be among some beautiful humans on the Patreon. I will leave a link for the Patreon below. You also do not have to pay a penny. Anyone can become a Patreon, and you can become a Patreon for free. On that though, I just need to say a very special thank you to Lawrence, Chris, Nathan, Geraldine, Ben, Heart of a Daedra, Kenneth, Russ, and Chelsea. Thank you for your continued support. It truly means so much to me, especially with all this YouTube situation with the partner program no longer being possible for this channel. We can reapply in February, but I just think it's more problems than it's worth. So if you are sticking by me on Patreon, thank you so much. I want to also shout out all the free members on Patreon. I believe there is about 30 of us now. I've just checked. There's 33 of you beautiful humans on Patreon. Thank you so much for being here, and I truly appreciate you. If you want to support the channel, each tier gets you something back. On the higher tiers, you can get a mug, you can get some notepads, and I believe you can even get a hoodie now. So if you want some Sarah Sinister merch, then this is the best and only way to do that. But now that is all from me. I sincerely thank you for always watching my videos. You're a beautiful human. Have a beautiful festive period, and I will see you in 2025. Bye-bye for now. Kellogg cereals, even to this day, are a staple of many homes. My chair went and I didn't enjoy that. That's better. I'm now not sitting on the crack, as it were.